Hello, welcome back to On the Spot. I'm Christopher Taylor of My Astro Chris, and you're back on the spot with me. Today we have a 43-year-old female that we'll be discussing, and I'm going to focus in on just a brief piece of her chart and what's going on now. Okay, and so if we look here at her natal chart, there it is for you. Whole lots of stuff going on. We're not going to talk about her sun sign up there in Gemini. We're not going to talk about most of what's on that chart. But what I want to zero in on, if you see there circled, Mars and Saturn. Mars in the first house and Saturn in the seventh house. These are some natal positions. This is where the planets were when she was born. This is the opposition here that I want to discuss. Okay, so Mars-Saturn opposition in general, before we even talk about what houses this is in, this is one of those situations that really, I can attest to this because I have Saturn opposing Mars in my chart. So I understand how this works. And Mars is the internal impulse, the doingness of the self, okay? So this is the energy of the self that we just want to do something, take action, okay? Saturn is very restrictive. It's this spoke in the wheels kind of an energy. It's like when you have these two planets in a hard aspect like this in opposition, it's almost like driving with the parking brake on, because Mars wants to go and Saturn is like the parking brake, kind of holding that Mars in check. All right, and so the general lesson in life is learning about right action. All right, that's the key lesson in this aspect, but it's not always up for review like it is right now. And obviously I'm picking on this part of her chart because this is something that is up for immediate review here coming up. Today is March 21st, 2011, and so just to get our bearings straight as far as what I'm talking about, April is going to be a pretty big month for this situation, and we're kind of in a general period for this as well. So, again, the Mars-Saturn, it's like driving with the parking brake on. It always seems like, from her perspective at least, with Mars in the first house, Saturn in the seventh, it always feels like she wants to take new action, and yet there's someone holding her back. You know, and so she's constantly going to recreate in her life this drama of, I want to do, but I'm not allowed to because of you. Okay? And so that you can be a business partner, a marriage partner, someone on the other side of the fence that gets to be the scapegoat of who prevents her from doing what she wants to do. And that might be, a point of awareness for her with this, but it's something to think about. You know, it's not always other people holding you back is really the point with this. And this is one of those times where it becomes more clear where the personal power exists versus where the actual limits are outside of the self that prevent that personal power from taking action. So it's going to be less confusing as we get to this period. All right, so Mars is sitting there at about 15 degrees or so of Libra, and Saturn is at about 9 degrees or so of Aries. And so that's interesting too, because Mars in Libra with Saturn in Aries is like the opposite of Saturn in the seventh house and Mars in the first house. I won't get too much into what I mean by that, but it really does beg us to look deeper into the sense of right action in relationships, understanding where I begin and others end, where my power is relative to other people's limitations, and how I create limits through my interactions with others. And so she might, in very many ways, she's probably the one who chooses people in her life to act as the spoke in the wheels and to act as the parking brake on her desires. There's some kind of a karmic sense that she doesn't want to overact, doesn't want to go too far. And there's always a sense of keeping herself in check by making sure there are people there to keep her in check, but then forgetting that she did that on an unconscious level and then blaming that person for stopping her from being or doing what she wants to do. All right? And so, speaking of this whole aspect, we'll get into it now as far as what's going on. We can go back into the fall of 2010, roughly around about October, November. This is when this would have started to get hit by the planet Saturn. If you look down there in the first house, Saturn, circled on the outside of the chart. Saturn in October started in opposition to her natal Saturn across the way in the seventh house, and started in a conjunction with her natal Mars in November of last year, of 2010. And so this would have initiated this general sense of now is the time to understand that my actions have to be directed in right ways, quote unquote right ways. And right is a relative and subjective term. The idea is what is right for her, okay? And how does she prevent herself from taking that right action in those kind of ways. So the general climate is set with Saturn there. And Saturn's been retrograding over this point, and that's going to last until about August, September of 2011. So we're kind of right in the middle of this general zone of when this is highlighted, all right? But right about now, in late March through April, this is the time, okay? This is the time where a huge awareness is going to come to her about where I end and others begin, and what I want to do versus what I perceive others are preventing me from doing. This could be literally within her marriage life that this is occurring with a partner. It could be in a business sense. We just don't know. That's up for her to understand. But the point is what she's going through, what she's undertaking in this realm of relationship. The importance of it is finding right action, understanding how far to take things. Because right about now, she's almost ready to take things as far as she can. And at the same time, feeling the sense of total restriction and trying to come to balance with that kind of, with those dual aspects in some ways. Okay, and so while Saturn is setting this whole thing up over this roughly 1 year period from the fall of 2010 through the end of the summer of 2011, now we have the planet Jupiter coming up, and it's on the other side of the chart, in the 7th house outside of the chart there. That initially formed a conjunction with her Saturn here in the last couple of weeks, in early to mid-March, right? And now it's about to oppose her Mars coming up here around early April, late March, early April. And so this time period from about early mid-March to about mid-April is a time when Jupiter is kind of igniting the same aspect, only from the other side. And so there's a real sense of almost being pushed into something by others. That's kind of Jupiter over in the 7th house, or opportunities coming at her through others, and her holding herself back with Saturn over there sitting on Mars, okay? And so there's a real sense of, there's an opportunity to go, but I can't go. I'm not ready yet. And that's the real sense, is I'm not ready yet. And with the planet Uranus and the Sun conjunct today, here on March 21st, in the first part of Aries, the energy of this in general, for the general populace, is, screw it. Just do it, And so she's battling right now with a sense of holding herself back and what fears hold her back from taking action. And she's experiencing the other side of the coin. Her typical experience of this is that she wants to take action and other people are holding her back. She's creating those situations, but now it's more evident to her that she's holding herself back from potential opportunities, all right? And so that's the experience here in March and April for her. And in addition to this, you also notice that Mercury, I have Mercury circled up there with Jupiter. Mercury is about to retrograde all the way through her 7th house of others, of relationships. And it's going to be joining Jupiter a couple of times or a few times during this process in her 7th house, crossing over these points of her natal Saturn and opposing her natal Mars. So this whole idea is under review. And there's a real sense of opportunity coming in here in March, early April, and a sense of her having to review that prospect, review the prospect of that relationship, review the prospect of what is being demanded or offered through that venue of others at this point in April. And then by the end of April, coming to some conclusions about, all right, which direction shall I take this? Okay, and the relationship realm is just huge on her radar right now. With, like I said, the planet Uranus and the Sun have conjuncted today in her 7th house, right at the start of the 7th house. We had the super full moon, in the late part of Virgo, right on her ascendant. So right in the me part of the chart. So this whole sense of myself and others, self and others, super highlighted right now as we speak, and supported kind of by this Saturn position from the fall of 2010 to the summer of 2011. And so this March-April time period is just huge, just huge. This is the time of year for her when the Sun goes to her 7th house. So it's just huge for relationships, for understanding, hi, this is me, and hello, this is you. and understanding that where those boundaries are, and understanding the limits of the self, and what you're willing to take from others, okay, and what you're willing to accept in terms of offerings and opportunities, and how far you're willing to push yourself. These are the kind of things that are up for review right now. So very important time to focus in on the intent of this period, which is right action. Understanding that no, people are not out to stop you from doing what you want, and not every opportunity that glitters is gold, and you have to find where that balance is. How far you're willing to take yourself with opportunities, and how much of you are actually preventing yourself from your own creative impulses. Okay, so we'll leave it at that, and that should about do it this time around for On the Spot. Again, I'm Christopher Taylor of My Astro Chris. If you're interested in your own On the Spot reading or a comprehensive reading with me, I do relationship readings, I do individual readings, and I do organizational readings. And then I also do parties and weddings and bridal showers and everything else. So do check out my website at myastrochris.com, and do not hesitate to contact me if something interests you. I'd be happy to help. Thanks again. Bye.